So our guest today is MadFishMonger, and I'm super excited to have her here with us. MadFishMonger is a longtime gamer nerd who now writes and creates video games all the time. She lives with ADHD and chronic pain, and also a cat and her partner. She has a 110-year-old sewing machine and entirely too much fabric. She likes to make things and game and talk about gaming a lot. So thank you so much for being here, first of all. As we go through this interview and just kind of talk about what it's like to live with chronic pain and ADHD, if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to pop them in !Q and then follow it with your question. That will put your question into a queue so we can address it. If we don't get to it, if I miss it for whatever reason, feel free to say, hey, you missed it. And I promise you we'll get to it. With all of that said, and Fluff Butt's here too, so there's that. With all of that said, thank you, MadFishMonger, for being here today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Clearly, you're already connected with the gaming world, so what's your favorite game or fandom and why?
Oh, I can't pick one. I'm not a pick one.
That's okay.
And I started on old school fantasy, and then discovered the World of Darkness in the 90s when that came out, and that just opened my eyes to this whole other world of gaming that was not the strict sort of so the sort of strategy battle fighting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was more storytelling, and so basically any storytelling based game ranks up there in my favorites. I do love D&D. There's so much you can do with it. I have a lot of fun with it. But the World of Darkness based games are kind of always going to be special to me because of the way the doors that they opened for me. And I am a big fan of the game, also a big fan of the game that I got to write for, which is Capers, which is about having superpowers. It starts in the 1920s, and then there's other settings. So that's a great game, and it's really a lot of fun.
Kapers? Yeah. I'm just gonna Google it real quick and provide a link.
Oh yeah, it's Nerdburger Games.
Nerdburger Games, okay.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. It's so much fun, and you play it with playing cards instead of dice, so it just gives you this whole other way to play.
Nice.
Yeah, I just love stuff that, I don't know, you can tell a story with. It's got a really interesting story to tell. I'm in.
Yeah. Well, you can use your imagination, your creativity, and especially since as your bio said, you write for games. That perfectly fits what I know about you.
Yeah, exactly.
We just Well, we just started a D&D game today with play-by-post in Discord, and it's already been a lot of fun. Just we've gone 5 steps, and it's already there's interaction between the characters, and the nice part is that our DM is just going, y'all are doing what? So it's good that instead of just being okay, well, press A to do this, or press B to do this, or okay, well, now you have to go through this door. It's well, no, let's take a left instead of a right, and now you have to make up what's over there.
Yeah.
So it sounds not related to gaming necessarily, and it's really not, but just kind of a more relatable question that for some reason a lot of people seem to have a love of true crime. So do you have a favorite serial killer?
I don't have a name, but I have a favorite movement.
Okay.
So the Black Widows. Now, a lot of people don't really know where that word came from. And I gave my podcast group an interesting breakdown of how these worked and how you use arsenic, and they all went, "Oh, this is why you play the necromancer." So here's why I play the necromancer. Around the turn of the century, you could get arsenic out of something commonly found in grocery stores called fly paper. Fly paper is this like long sort of unrolled sticky piece of paper that you would hang like in a kitchen or a pantry or something, and it would catch flies. But if you took several of them and boiled them, what you got out of that, you could boil down, you could get arsenic. Arsenic poisoning in a human mimics a heart attack. So in every which way except for one very small tell, it looks like a heart attack. So these women would marry an older man who had a lot of money. They would often marry a man who was already known to be sick, known to be a drinker or a smoker. Someone who, if they just randomly dropped dead of a heart attack, nobody would really...
Right. It wouldn't be surprising.
It's not a surprise. Guy always drank. He was in his 60s. Okay. And the great thing about arsenic poisoning, though, is that, from the killer's perspective, and I'm, great, I mean awful, is that arsenic builds up in your body. And because it's poison, like any poison, in different people, this takes varying degrees before it actually affects them. So in the morning tea is very common. So you'd put a few drops every morning into your husband's tea. Put a few drops of arsenic, put a few drops of arsenic, put a few drops of arsenic. Now, you don't literally know how much it's going to take before he dies. So when he dies, it is a surprise. You don't have to fake the surprise because you didn't know when it was going to happen. So you don't have to be like, oh gosh, my...
I had no idea this was going to happen today.
Yeah, right? So what they would do, and of course back then it was much easier to change your identity. So this, woman would sweep into town. She would meet some rich old man. She would, be publicly be very in love. Oh, she's so happy to meet him. And they were only married 6 months before he died. Such a tragedy. And she was so heartbroken. She just couldn't live in town anymore. She's had to go back to her cousins in the next state.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where now she has a new name and is working on a new husband. All right. So that whole Black Widow thing actually came out of, like, that name came from this process. And it wasn't until, and of course, forensics at this time is very, very new, sort of process. And there is, what they did eventually discover is that arsenic will leave a distinctive blue tinge in the sclera of the eyeball. And so in every other respect, arsenic poisoning will look like a heart attack unless you check spot in the eyes.
Interesting.
But, yeah. So once they figured out both that tell and where they were getting the arsenic from, they restricted sales and eventually phased arsenic out of fly paper, so you couldn't get that. And then once that got around to police officers and forensic departments, around the world that there was a way to check for arsenic poisoning as opposed to a heart attack, because before then they didn't know.
Right.
Then eventually that process was sort of,
Yeah. Couldn't do it anymore.
I mean, there's other ways.
Can't get away with
the
it.
arsenic thing was just, it was so convenient. It was easy. It was, it was such a crime you could just get away with so smooth, and
I had no idea that arsenic used to be in flypaper. No clue.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
I know
but you can't do it today. Hey, Bite Mark, how are you doing? Yes, these days it is harder. Yes. Miles, the GM, how are you doing? Yeah. Can't do it today with the flying paper.
No.
Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on, what your situation is.
We do have, forensics. Like, it's not like it is on TV. But
yes.
They're pretty good.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So you live with ADHD. When were you first diagnosed with ADHD?
I didn't officially get diagnosed until I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
But that's like, for someone my age, because I'm 42, that's actually early. Because, and especially with women, it does not get diagnosed as often. People think about ADHD and they just think of some little kid bouncing off the walls, and you're like, no. and because of the perception of it, they don't see it. And especially, I mean, in the 80s, nobody cared. They didn't care about the kids. You were a cog in the machine, and they shoved you through. And so I didn't get any of the help that I needed. I didn't get any of the support that I needed, and I just kind of had to muddle through. And then I tried to go to university. I lasted 2 weeks.
Wow.
One of my classes I literally never even found.
Oh no.
I couldn't find it. I could not find it. That building was so confusing, and I couldn't find it. I never went to the classroom because I couldn't find it. But I realized once I got there how utterly unprepared I was, and how much my whole, like, elementary and high school, they had just sort of brushed me through.
Right.
I got a lot of pity passes. Because I did very well in English and language and literature and everything, but I couldn't figure out math, and I was really struggling with a bunch of other stuff, and and my performance was up and down. And I mean, once I dropped out of university, realizing that I was utterly screwed, I went to counseling, and finally someone along the line suggested ADHD may be an issue. And so they sent me to a specialist, and she asked me a few questions, but I mean, it was funny because, like, when she handed me the questionnaire, she was like, basically, this is just a formality because you're a textbook case.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay then. Like,
yeah, one of those, we have to have this on file.
Yeah, like, I saw this woman for 10 minutes, and she was like, you have ADHD. I was like, my entire life, no one has seen this.
Yeah.
And it was so validating, to get that. But also, it took me a long time to really figure out what that meant for me, and how it affected me, and kind of how that went along. So
yeah,
it's been, the getting the diagnosis is always the best start, but
yeah,
I can't, I mean, there's always that part of you though that thinks like, if only someone had given a shit when I was like 5 or 10 or something.
Right.
You know, only if someone had cared then, how would I be now? You know, would I be a different person now if I'd been diagnosed at a different time in my life or whatever. But
well, Miles said my folks used to tell me that I made up my ADHD. They started calling him Miles. Pay attention. That's funny.
Yeah. Being yelled at to pay attention is probably, like, if you ever want to see a barbarian rage, you just tell me to do that, because I have had it.
Yeah.
Like, I put up with being treated, you know, now that I'm looking back on it, I put up with being treated so badly by adults and other kids, and, you know, they don't understand what it's like, and they just hate you on you for it, and you're like,
yeah, why
does this require hate?
Yeah, because you're not the same. You're not the same as me, so I have to pick on that. Yeah. That for me is, you have so much potential, right? Oh, you rage at that, Bite Mark. You have so much potential.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That one. If only you could try a little harder. Yeah. And I start thinking about the flypaper and arsenic, and I wish, man. Like,
born at the wrong time for that.
Yeah, I think everybody with ADHD has a collection of those phrases that just make you want to punch people, because they don't understand. And being told that I wasn't trying, I was like, you don't even know how hard I try.
Yeah. Right.
You have absolutely no concept of my effort and how much effort I'm putting into this. Like, yeah, if you cared about me, you'd pay attention.
Right. Yes.
Because it's about you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say was your biggest challenge before your diagnosis? And then once you got that diagnosis of ADHD, did you have any light bulb moments of, this is why I'm facing that, and now it all kind of makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Beforehand, it was just constant apologizing, shame, falling over myself, trying to please people, and just, like, sometimes certain things I would just keep struggling at, you know, and I would just keep going, even though I was falling over myself all the time. And then but there were a lot of things I just gave up on, because of the, like, variable sort of abilities that ADHD sticks you with, and from being shot down so much and being shit on a lot for not being able to do things that way or whatever. And, you know, you do get some fixations sometimes, you do get obsessions, you do get, like, I don't get them anymore, but I did when I was younger. You know, and I'd get very into something, and I get very, very fixated, and I was very I would, you know, drift off into fantasy all the time. And yeah, there was just a lot of, like, I don't know, it was a lot of self-hate for sure. And afterward, it really helped in terms of like my therapy, because when the self-hate would come up, I could say, well, hang on, is this ADHD? And it gave me a moment to sort of pause and not just immediately go, I'm the worst and I'm terrible and I'm
right.
those bad things, right? I could stop and go, hang on, there's a, you know, there's a filter here. We've got another factor to sort of take in. And so it really, really helped me. I have time blindness, and that has been a massive issue my entire life. And you get away with it a lot when you're really little, up to a certain point.
Yep.
Because you're learning time. So you get away with that. When you're a teenager, well, you're just lazy anyway, so. But when you are in your 20s and you have to go to work and they expect you like a robot to just be there on time, and apparently nobody has any understanding of how public transit works, but anyway.
That's true.
And you know, when I was really, really, really faced with when I attempted to go to college and, you know, was in my early 20s trying to get work and trying to do all of that, I was faced with the fact that I could not tell time, in the sense that I have no idea how much time is going by.
Yeah.
I could do something and it, in my mind, I could have been like, you know, it's so hard to explain, because you know, where some people are like, you know, when you're waiting for something and you're very anticipating something, it makes everything feel longer. Right. And so it's not that I don't get those I do get those occasional moments of like that sort of perception of time being faster or slower, but overall, time is just a thing that doesn't exist.
Right. Well, and I know the bite mark lives with us as well, and she's described it as like, if you go to the DMV, you go to renew your license or whatever, it's perfect for her because she has no idea if it's been 5 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
But that also means that if she's sitting there doing something at a computer, she's sitting there reading, she's sitting there doing something at home, and she has to be somewhere, she has no concept of, has it been 5 minutes or an hour, and when's it time to leave? Right. Yeah. So she says, I have 10 alarms set on my phone to remind me to do things at times, and I don't even have a job right now. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, we've definitely talked about that before. Is that common with ADHD, or is that something that's usually separate?
It is common, but ADHD, like a lot, like autism, in the way that they explain it, like the, I don't know if you've heard the sort of salad bar explanation.
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, if you think of the symptom, you know, of your, so, you know, your salad is your base, your lettuce base is your ADHD.
Yeah.
And then you got your symptoms, right? And so those are your additives. And so a lot of people will have them, but, you know, you have them in varying degrees. So one person's going to have more tomatoes and that person's going to have more cucumbers. So you're going to, you know, one person's issue with time blindness may not be quite as serious as someone else's.
Sure.
So it is a very common symptom. But the degree to which people experience it varies.
Gotcha.
Some people have like a general sort of sense of time, but when they're very stressed, they lose it. That's kind of thing. But for me, it is a major symptom, and I just have no concept of it.
Yeah.
I have clocks everywhere, in every room. I do wear a watch often. I'm not wearing it now, but I do actually wear it because it's easier. And better than checking the phone, because if you check the phone to check what time it is, and there's other stuff.
All your notifications are there.
So the watch just tells you what time it is, nothing else.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so there was a lot of that, and there was a lot of thinking about that, and there was a lot of realizing that, wait a minute, like, how am I supposed to manage a thing that I can't understand?
Mm-hmm.
Manage your time, okay. What is it? What's time? Can you explain it to me? Because I don't know.
Right.
And I've had to learn habits, and I've intentionally done things like noted the time and the color of the sun at the same time. And so that I'm trying to teach myself, okay, this is, and so I don't know the number, but I can look outside at the light and go, okay, that's morning,
Right.
I'm aware of that, but like in terms of like the numbers,
mm-hmm.
No idea. How much time has gone by? No idea.
Can't tell you.
Couldn't tell you. How much time it takes to do something?
Yeah.
It's this mysterious entity to me that I can't grasp. Mm-hmm. And I think I think that's very hard for people.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard for people who don't have time blindness to understand when someone else does. Like, Bite Mark is my sister. I've known her for my whole life. And well, for her whole life. And it's one of those things that once I understood that she has time blindness, like a lot of things made sense for me based on just, living with her and being with her, and growing up with her. And it's like, okay, well, now I understand a lot of different things about you. But if you're trying to explain that to someone who has a good concept of how much time has passed and how much, how long a task takes, or how long they've spent on a time, or how long they spent on a task, or how long they've been in this line or that line, or whatever, it's hard to explain. Like, what do you mean you don't understand how long it's been? What does that mean? Of course you know how long it's been. It's been an hour. Like,
yeah, it's like telling someone you can't read.
Yeah.
They're like, but everyone can.
Yeah, right. What do you mean you can't read?
I can't. Like,
yeah.
And it's. Yeah, but like I just saw in chat there, you were saying like, you kind of have to find new ways to approach things. And so, having time blindness in a society obsessed with time and obsessed with, especially in the workforce, where they have you have to be there on time, and you have 10 minutes to go to the bathroom, and you have to do and it has to be this, and it's just like, that's terrifying to me.
Yeah,
that is a straight up level of hell for me to live in, because you're asking me to manage and be on top of something that I can't.
Yeah,
I can't do that. And and I think getting the diagnosis also helped me be more forgiving myself, and not and also like try and look for some of the good things, like not just everything I can't do, all the stuff that I can do as well.
Yeah, I think once you can understand something, especially if it's something that's diagnosable, like it helps you, or it helps me at least, Be like, no, this isn't, you have a legitimate thing going on in your brain right now. This isn't necessarily true and objective. Like, it's going through this filter. And it's a lot easier to say, yeah, you just put that through your filter and you really shouldn't have. So it's easier. It's easier. Have you ever watched Clifford Stoll's TED Talk, The Call to Learn?
I have not watched that one. I should.
I don't know if I have either.
I've seen a few of those. That one. No, not specifically.
Do you want to? Can you link it, Bite Mark, and I'll put it on my watch later. Also.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has ADHD or not, but his talk is riveting. We did watch one part of a TED Talk one time actually on stream that talked about ADHD. And it was a story about this guy who had severe ADHD, and like he went to the gas station and his friend pulled by and with his boat and said, hey, you want to go fishing? And he literally left his door open. The what the hell is it called? The thing that goes in your gas tank. The nozzle. Yeah. Left the nozzle in his tank, got in the car with him, and went fishing all day, and then didn't tell anyone, and just like it was this very stream of consciousness, this whole story. But that one was great. Alternate title was 18 Minutes with an Agile Mind. I like it. I like it. So you're a former youth worker with 15 years of experience and training in counseling as well. Did you work with a lot of kids with ADHD?
I did. And yeah, I tried to.
Yeah.
Like, because I wanted them to know that, you know, you can get by. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get by. And you know, and that I think it also helped them show, because especially kids with ADHD get, I think it's 5 times more negative messages about themselves than kids. And they have a great deal of difficulty managing friendships. I know I do, like, I'm better habits now and everything, but definitely as a kid, I had no idea how to people. I was so weird, and I was a weird kid, and things that I liked, and I read voraciously. I read so many books time, and I was reading like way above my grade level, and so of course, because I was reading way above my grade level, I had this expansive vocabulary, and I'd go and try and talk to kids, and they were like, it was like, I rated 3 grade levels higher than you, shut up, you know, like I don't know, I just I did not know how to be a kid.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, and it makes you feel very hopeless. It can make you very like there is no future for you or anything. And you don't really see a lot of people in media discussing it or admitting to having it. It's often treated as a joke in the media, and or an excuse or a lie, or the worst is when you get up and then you've got someone with some pet magic crystal whatever theory, whatever thing. They have got a thing that they think will cure you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would just like to remind everyone that it is a neurobiological disorder. So as one of the support blogs that I follow says, it's not in my brain, it is my brain.
Yep. Yep.
And I think I like that. And yeah, I just it did help. And I think I wanted, and I think even just like it helped me. It also helps me come up with, different ways of looking at it. I had a very different perspective when I was working with kids, even.
Mm-hmm.
I had a different perspective from a lot of the other workers because I'd been on the end where a lot of these kids were. And it's not to say that you can't be a great worker if you haven't, lived a life. You absolutely can, but you just, it just gives you, it does give you a perspective, and it gives you a moment to be like, oh, wait a minute, I've been here. And then you can go, okay, what would I have liked?
Yeah.
What would I
what did you need to hear?
Yeah, in this moment, and so I tried my best to kind of be that for people. And
yeah, that's good. Especially, like you said, with kids diagnosed with ADHD or kids with ADHD diagnosed or not, getting that 5 times more negative feedback from everyone around them. Like, it's nice to have somebody say, hey, this is how you can handle this. This is how you can improve this for yourself. But you also, like, you can filter those out if you're able, and know that it's not you. It's not you that they're attacking. It's that they don't understand. It's them. So
and ableism, really. I mean, hate for people with disabilities, and ADHD does, fall under that umbrella. And I think people look at someone like me, and then and don't really consider me as someone who would fall under the umbrella of having an intellectual disability. Because you have this, because a lot of people have a sort of mental image of what they think that's supposed to be like. And so, yeah, it is one of those, like, visibility things where you have to, and when I got diagnosed 20 years ago, there wasn't everything I was looking for was for kids.
Right.
All the advice was for children. All the advice was for adults helping children. And there was nothing for, I am an adult.
Right.
Have ADHD.
Yes.
How do?
It didn't magically disappear,
Yeah, and like in some people it sort of does. In some people that development will sort of get a little bit better. Some people don't, ever grow out of it, and a lot of times too, like, a lot of things that were really, really problematic for me were also like situational, and some of them you can learn to manage through sort of good habits and your life. So I mean, there are a lot of adults who technically do still have ADHD, but they manage it very well,
right?
And it's it's not so detrimental to their lives that it's a that they would go out and seek a help for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, either they manage it or they hide it, which is not necessarily the same thing. Like, if you're hiding it, then you're really not dealing with any underlying issues that you're going on. And I think that a lot of people have really learned to hide it, especially if you were diagnosed 20 years ago. Okay, well, that diagnosis was available then, but you had already gone through, 20 years of your life going, this is not okay. Being told this is not okay. You're not okay. The things you're doing are not okay. And it's like, how much of that do you actually open up about versus how much of that do you just stuff away and deal with, on your own later? So,
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite strategies for handling the symptoms of ADHD?
Well, habit. That's your first thing.
Yeah.
That's about the only way that I can get stuff done is doing it at the same time every day. So I get up at the same time every day. I have an alarm, and I get up weekdays, weekends, same time every day. And that's been very, very helpful. I also, when I have a new thing, like a new habit that I need to get into, I've learned to just pick one habit and not try to change too many things at once. Just pick one thing, change that one thing, work on that. If you have pills to take or something, work on making sure that you get into the habit of taking those pills. Once you've got that down, then you're trying to get into a habit of like brushing your teeth, whatever, right? So just pick one.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where a lot of people will go wrong, when they like, okay, I'm going to focus. I'm going to get my life together. Get up, and then I'm going to brush my teeth. And then all you've already, because now you've given yourself 47 steps.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming and you're not going to do it. So,
well, that's particularly good right now because everyone's, oh, new year, new me. Yeah. Everyone says that. Okay, whatever. But if you're trying to give yourself these 5 new resolutions, if you have ADHD, and sometimes even if you don't have ADHD, you're trying to do 5 new things all of a sudden, all at once, like you're more likely to fail at all 5 than if you just implement one now and in a few months implement another.
Exactly.
Just give yourself that time. But that's great. That's good.
And I think, just being more forgiving of myself and understanding that a habit that would be as simple as like brushing your teeth is as difficult as getting into the habit of like doing sit-ups or something.
Right.
From so as hard as it is for you to keep up your resolution of doing all those sit-ups every day, like you know how hard that is, right? Just imagine that you have to apply that to absolutely everything in your life.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really helped was a talk. I believe it was a TED talk, but I saw it ages ago. I don't even remember. But it was someone with ADHD, and they were talking, and one of the things that they would do was when they were introducing the concept to people who didn't have it was to say, okay, write down all the steps to tying your shoes. And most people would write a very short list, and then she would say, no, hang on. You haven't actually gotten all of the steps here.
Yeah. And
then she would reveal her list of the steps. And, most people would just be like, you hold the string here and but her list was extremely specific. You have to, hold the string with this finger and then pinch with this finger. And it ended up being like this 25-step process just to tie the laces on one shoe.
Right.
And she said, this is the part that trips people like us up. There's too many steps. And our brains can't take in that many at once.
Yeah.
And so when, this whole concept of actually just stopping and breaking everything down, I know it's a thing that it's something everybody tells you to do, break the task down into small bits, but they never tell you what that means, or like how to functionally do that. And it's like, no, you break it down into small bits that you can actually do. So what is the first step that you can actually accomplish? Not what's the first step of this entire process. What's the first step you can accomplish?
Yeah.
And that, like, just scaling everything back. And awareness of the fact that my brain will automatically go, but there's this huge forest over here. And I'm like, no.
Right.
We got the one tree, and we're just going to deal with the one tree. No, but the whole... No. We're just dealing with the one tree right now. So... Oh, I heard him yell.
Yes, my daughter's going to bed, so she came to say goodnight, and he perked up. He has been just laying here. He has been just laying here. And chilling. Yeah, Bo's inside. Good night, baby. Love you. Will you turn the lights down to half in here? Thank you. Yeah, so. Holy crap. No, that's not good. Turn it up. More. Oh my god. I'm being trolled by my own daughter. That's good, thank you. My anchor when my ship feels it's sinking is you can't eat the whole world in one bite. I like it. That's good.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, you hear this, okay, we'll break it down into small steps. Well, okay, she probably did learn it from me. That's true. I can't even argue with that. If you're going to break it down into small steps, like that's another task that you have to get done.
Exactly. Right? Like now you've just added to my
list.
List.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So definitely breaking things down, and then accepting the fact that I am only capable of getting a small amount of things done in a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just, that's it. That's fact. And so my expectations for myself are, getting this much work. And then if I get more than that, great.
Mm-hmm.
But if I get this much work done, that's what what I'm capable of.
Successful, yeah.
Yeah. And I read a lot, and I keep up on the psychology and everything. And they are finding when it comes to good habits or things that you want to change in your life, willpower is ineffective. So, constantly telling children to just try harder and
right.
focus, and like that's exactly the wrong thing to do. That they're discovering that you should be using the small amount of willpower that you have to help you get into good habits. So, okay, I decided I'm gonna work out every day at 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 10 a.m. now, so now I have to. Now it's the time to use that willpower and force yourself to get yourself started working out, right?
Right.
But so you've broken so that's breaking it down to you're not using your willpower all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Try and force yourself to work out. You're telling yourself at 10 a.m. I'm gonna do this. So yeah, it's just constantly trying, and you have to just adapt, because stuff that used to work will stop working, and then and
right,
yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah. Bite Mark says, I've determined I cannot both go to the store and cook the food from the store on the same day. It's too many things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have problems with that. I don't have ADHD, and I have a problem going to the store and cooking. at the same time. Now I can put something on the stove to cook while I go to the store, like in the crock pot or something. But if I'm going to cook the food from the store, I don't have time after work.
I'm not allowed, by my own rule and other people that I've lived with, to own a stovetop kettle.
Oh.
Even the ones that whistle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have forgotten about them so many times that I've nearly melted the pot to the element twice.
Wow. Even the ones that whistle.
I have no idea how I didn't hear it.
Wow.
I don't. But stoves are a big fear for me. So
yeah.
I've developed some very good habits around using the stove because of that. Because I'm afraid of more stuff like that happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have I have to have an automatic kettle now that turns itself off. Yeah. Stuff like that. I can't leave things on because I will literally forget and I will wander off and it'll be 3 hours and I have no idea.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've had that happen before. My son put something on the stove and he was cooking like ramen or something. Took it off and then forgot to turn the burner off, but put the pot back on. So what little was still in there, bubbled and started smoking. And I was like, hang on, kid, you gotta go do it. Well, the next time he did it again. And then the next time I was like, okay, you're going to learn how to make ramen in the microwave. Let's just not have this problem again.
Yeah.
Here's something different. So whenever you write for games, do you ever incorporate either something that's a common ADHD experience or something that's kind of a common helping someone discover a new strategy, or do you have, do you relate ADHD into what you write for games at all?
Sometimes, yeah. I will find myself and I'm like, anyone with ADHD will know. They will know that I have written as a ADHD character. They will know. It's more that it's more just in the way that I describe them and the way that I describe the way that they behave and everything. Without like flat out saying it. So yeah, I do that, and I try to, I just try and throw it in there a little bit, because I feel like we don't get enough respect. So
yeah. Well, and if it helps someone relate to a game character a little bit more, even with or without straight up saying like this is relatable to someone who has ADHD, if someone with ADHD can relate to a game character a little bit more, or to a situation a little bit more, like it's that much more engaging and it helps them feel that much more accepted and helps them understand that, hey, I'm not completely crazy,
Yeah. Like not being crazy, that's like just, there's so much guilt and there's so much self-hate and there's all of these, just things you learn to call yourself because of all of the stuff that you go through. And,
yeah. So in addition to ADHD, you also live with chronic illness and pain. Can you talk about how that has had an impact on your physical and mental and emotional health?
Ooh, it's been rough. It's been about 4 years now. It started out of the blue. I started having very severe pain. It feels, well, I still feel it. It felt like someone just walked up and shoved a knife into my ribs.
Wow.
And it just hasn't gone away since. I've had a number of other symptoms. I have numbness and weakness. I have difficulty walking and moving and talking sometimes. There's a lot of other things. So, I'm there's a lot of like the going to the doctor and going to these appointments and getting tests, and then this test just comes out negative and blah blah blah. Like, oh, that's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And hard to remember all of the appointments. Definitely missed things. Have to get on, that's a really tough one because super important to be at these appointments.
Yeah, right.
And as some other people will understand, when you have a really important thing to do, it's really hard to do anything else because you're like, no, but I have the super point, and so I have to only think about that, and I can't do anything else. You know, so it kind of ruins like the rest of your day because you're so focused on like getting to this appointment on time.
Right.
It takes up a huge amount of your like mental energy. My energy is very low with the pain lately, and the stress makes the ADHD symptoms worse. It definitely makes depression worse, significantly worse, and I do go through some bad bouts of depression every now and then. I have a tendency to pull away, retreat, and just, get away from everyone, stop talking to people, stop connecting, and just hide.
Yeah.
And I do nothing. Sometimes I get, and that's really hard on your self-esteem, especially when you sort of create. It's very difficult to, but it's also like it's difficult to accept how much energy and everything, that the pain eats up. Like, just, I made this dramatic, a really dramatic poetic statement of existence is pain, but and I felt very goth saying it, but really, like, it is my every moment. I am always in pain, and other times it gets worse, and like, talk about distracting. It definitely kind of ruined me in terms of like the first little while. It was so to get anything done because like, I don't know, and it's hard to forgive yourself. You look at people and you look at all the stuff that they do and all the accomplishments and everything, and you're like, wait a but that was a big deal because, like, I had, my hands were working and numb, and like I could use the knife, and
right.
So yeah, it chronic pain and that, like, that chronic pain changes your whole life, and in the same respect that, I'm a little distracted right now, or I can't focus right now, isn't the same as I live my every waking moment with ADHD. You got a sort of magnitude of difference. I have a little bit, I hurt myself and chronic pain.
Right.
Absolutely. Magnitude of difference.
Yeah.
And I mean, my whole life I have asthma and I have allergies and I have stomach problems. And, so when this chronic pain thing started, I can do it. I can do it. And nope, I could not. It is like, walking around with a knife shoved into your side all the time is just pretty draining. Really.
Just hearing you describe it sounds so draining and so uncomfortable. More says, I wish I could switch places with this lady for a few days so she could have some relief. Aren't you sweet?
Thank you. That's so sweet. Yeah. I wouldn't want anybody else to go, honestly.
Yeah.
But it has taught me, like, I don't want to say sense that, like, it's more that you just try to make the best of your situation, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. At the end of the day, whatever your diagnosis, whatever issue, whatever problem, you got to get on with it, right? You gotta get on with your day. There's the cat needs feeding, and the floor needs sweeping, and somebody's got to clean the toilet. So you just
nose goes, not me.
Yeah, you gotta get shit done,
right?
And so you can lay around and be upset about it, which is fine.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do that every now and then. But at the end of the day, you just gotta find a way to live. Yeah. And online gaming has been wonderful for that, and the writing and everything that's been saving my sanity.
How do you feel that gaming or nerdy or geek-related activities or interactions or connections have helped you in your life and helped you deal with ADHD and chronic pain and just kind of life so far?
Well, when I started gaming, I was 16, and that was at the point where I was finally realizing, like, okay, I am weird. Like, this is not a, kids are mean thing. Like, mm-hmm. I am not like you guys. And when, and then when I found gaming, and I was just like, oh, this is awesome. Outlet started. So obviously, like, that was, and my real name, Shireen, comes from Conan novel, because my dad was very obsessed with Conan. So I kind of grew up around fantasy thing. So when I was like 15 and someone was like, do you want to play D&D? I was like, do I ever? And so I was all over that, but I didn't like all the math. I just liked the characters, and it definitely woke me up to, it was a bit of a wake-up call to how bad my math was. So that was definitely a wake up.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got into into LARPing with mm-hmm. the World of Darkness and playing Vampire, that was the biggest, like, eye opener in terms of what role playing could do for me.
Yeah,
I realized it was at that point where I kind of was realizing that I was oddly socialized. I was like a feral cat, I didn't know how to. Yeah. So I was like, and so I was just like, well, okay, how do you people? Like, how do you do this?
How do you people good?
Yeah. And so with role playing, I could be my character And I could experiment with these different social situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could be like, okay, so what happens in a social situation if I do this? You know, what if I poke this bear? What happens? And it was role playing. It didn't matter.
Yeah, right.
Right? Because like, oh, it hurts my character. Well, that just makes a more interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not feeling the feelings. The character's feeling these feelings.
Right.
Like me. And so it gave me this like freedom to really like to experiment with social situations without putting myself into those situations.
Yeah.
And the way I learned so much from being able to do that. And then, it just once, I sort of learned that and went on, and the gaming just sort of kept me writing, kept me interested. I was always writing fan fiction. It's too bad. I used to have an Angel Fire website that had a bunch of my old
nice
fan fiction on it, but it got deleted. So.
Oh no!
I know, dumbass. Back it up. I should have, because it would be so cringeworthy and to read right now. But then, and I've been gaming again in the last few years, but then when I, the chronic pain started up and it was so bad, and I don't get out of the house much because it's still so difficult to get around. I started finding online gaming, and I was like, I can talk to people.
Yeah.
But, I don't have to leave the house, and I don't have to do all this like prepping and, all of the work that it takes to go from here to another place.
Yeah.
And there have been people who have just been so wonderful and supportive, and they're there when I need them, and they, and the wonderful thing about having friends around the world and in all these different time zones is just that any time of day, if I'm having a bad time, somebody somewhere is awake and kicking me up.
Absolutely.
I love that so much, I do. And the and the support community as well, like, because like I said, when I was diagnosed, there was nothing for adults. And now there is, and there are loads of communities with adults with ADHD who can all talk to each other and talk about their issues and that sort of thing. And so that's like, just a massive resource that's
right,
a huge weight off your shoulders, because you can just go find stuff out. And when I look at the difference between like my issues with chronic pain and my issues with ADHD, like not having the diagnosis for my chronic pain at this point, it is terrible. It's been awful.
Right.
Like not having the diagnosis, because they don't know how to treat me. They don't know what to give me. They, and what do you do? Right?
Yeah, that's I mean, anytime you're, oh, look at your kitty. Okay, I've had several black cats and I've loved all of them.
Yes. He is a standard issue black cat.
He's sweet.
His name is Jin.
I like it.
and he's the other part of him and my partner. The other part would have been keeping me sane.
Yeah.
He knows too. Like when I have terrible pain, he comes and cuddles.
Oh, that's really sweet. That's really sweet. This ding dong over here, I had strep throat last week. Week before, I don't remember. And I laid in bed on Saturday and just didn't even get out of bed unless I absolutely had to. And he snuggled with me all day long. It was so sweet. Oh wait, Miles, is Miles the bear that you poked? He said I'm still devastated.
I hope not. Wait.
Yes, all cats are wonderful. Yes, even when they're butts. That's true. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
No, there you go. Now you poked him. It's true.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even not having it, because I've had just for like a month and a half, not for very long, and I've already got some tests scheduled and everything, but I've had a lot of pain in my hands, a lot of weakness in my hands, and I've been doing some different stretches and stuff for them, and just like nothing seems to help. Ibuprofen doesn't even touch the pain. Like it's pretty insane. But not knowing what's wrong, like I'm constantly trying to doctor myself, right? But going through tests, and I just went through a round of tests early last week, and the doctor called me back and was like, well, everything looks normal. I'm like, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. That's not what I wanted to hear. Nope. Like, I don't necessarily want to hear, well, you have something seriously wrong with you, but I don't want to hear everything's normal, because I'm telling you that these hands aren't normal.
I know. Right? Like,
so yeah, I understand a little bit of what you're going through, just the smallest amount of what you're going through.
Oh, yeah.
And it sucks. Yeah,
it does. And it's like, so that's why I think it's important to talk about having ADHD, mm-hmm. and why I think it's important to stop hiding it and be able to just say, like, look, this is the way my brain is wired.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and let's move forward with this.
Mm-hmm.
And because once you have that, if you can, when you are young and you see someone in media or whatever, and you're like, hey, they're like me, it makes you feel better about yourself, especially if they're not portrayed terribly, but also,
mm-hmm.
like, that might mean that you'll get help when you're little, or it's never too late, right? So at any point, you just need someone to, see you like that one specialist did.
Yep.
She was just like, and she was looking at me like, when she was talking to me, and she was looking at me like, how have you gone undiagnosed your whole life? It's like you're walking around wearing a t-shirt
mm-hmm.
that says I have ADHD, and nobody noticed. Like,
yeah,
it is very easy, I think, especially with girls who have a tendency to withdraw mm-hmm. instead of act out, because the acting out gets you way more attention.
Yeah,
being the quiet kid reading in the corner does not.
No, doesn't.
But when the teacher fails to notice that the quiet kid reading in the corner has no friends and doesn't participate in anything and is the last picked, in the team sports, and is the one made fun of, and blah blah blah, right? Like, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've worked in when I worked in school as well. Like, they're overworked and underpaid, and
oh yeah,
it's a mess. Like, so many of those systems, they're just absolute disasters, and it was very, very frustrating to work in those systems, because I was so annoyed at how ineffective a lot of them were.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the, the like parts of the education system and the special education system and foster care system. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare.
Go on, kitty.
But
yeah,
like, but I think also in terms of like how gaming has helped me, I mean, mostly just, there's just the very basic things of just company, keeping my brain active,
Yep.
And that sort of thing. But, overall, I think it definitely helps you develop empathy. You really get the opportunity to think about what it's like to be somebody else. And I think that really, I just think that's invaluable. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that absolutely everybody should have the opportunity to do. And pretending to be someone who's not and who can do things like tell time and count money.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Right. The connection aspects and the immersion aspects, those are pretty good ones.
Yeah. And just putting some meaning and purpose and stuff to look forward to gives me reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I start a new game next week. And,
right. Yeah. Well, now that we have this D&D campaign going, I'm like, wait, I got to get up and see what everyone's done.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, you need that. I think it is really important to maintain a lot of positivity in your life and in your day, and but also like in your future. You need things to look forward to.
Right.
So even if it's just hanging out with some friends, you need that.
Yeah.
And you need to put those things, and you need to prioritize them.
If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory about mental illness or around talking about mental health in general, what would it be?
I think what it boils down to is that a lot of people believe that we have everything that happens in our brains is under our control. I believe that there's a lot of people who seem to sort of have this fallacy. We can think our way into fixing our brains. And for some reason, we have a difficult time seeing brain and mind the same.
Yeah.
And so when something goes wrong and you fall in the ice and you break your arm, well, that's not your mind's fault that you broke your arm. You didn't break your arm because you wanted to. You broke your arm because you fell in the ice in physics, right? But if you have something go wrong in your brain, well, you should be trying hard. You should think positive.
Yes.
You should, and you're like, well, no, it's a physical issue it's exactly the same as breaking my arm, right? Why would you forgive? Why would you say, well, no, you broke your arm because you fell on the ice in physics, whereas, you broke your brain because you had a virus, whatever, like it happened. It's the same.
Yeah.
And you can't just like hope really hard.
Yeah, there's another video on YouTube that goes into like shows someone breaking their arm or shows someone giving themselves insulin injections or whatever, and the reactions are always, oh, well, why don't you just cheer up about your arm? Like, stop crying and just cheer up. Or, are you sure you need that medication for the insulin injections? And it's just like, there's so many things that people say that you would never say if it was something like diabetes or broken arm or the flu or anything like that. And I'm really glad to hear you say that just the mind and the brain are two different things, and you can't always control the things that are wrong with your brain. It's just, you can't. You just can't.
And so to treat it like it's some kind of personality flaw or fault. Yeah. That's absurd. Like, that's just
Yeah, why don't you just stop being sad already? Exactly.
Yeah. Like, why didn't I think of that?
Just cut that shit out. Come on. Get it over with.
Well, what would I would have done have you not just walked up to me, random stranger, and told me that?
Right, because I've never thought of trying that.
Nope. Not once. Never
occurred to me. So Miles asked, do you have any words of hope for those out there in a similar situation as you have been?
Well, I mean, in terms of ADHD, it does get better. In the sense that you get, if you try, you do get better habits. You do learn how to cope with things. You learn how to manage your symptoms, and you forgive yourself, and you learn your own limits. So, that there's a huge improvement in that. When it comes to chronic pain, it doesn't get better. Don't bullshit. Like, there's no sense in platitude and petting you on the head about it. It fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It just does. And you have to just find reasons to keep going. And you have to find reasons to keep getting up and keep trying and keep pushing through.
Yeah.
Because people with chronic pain are very, very, very at risk for hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Or ending their lives. And I understand that. I get it. There have been times where I am just begging for something, anything, to make it stop. And it's not a place anybody should be.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I have a crazy high pain tolerance now. So I really want to go get a tattoo.
That's the silver.
Like, I haven't been tattooed since this happened, so I want to go and get a tattoo, because I will be able to just take it like a champ.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll
Absolutely.
Just sit, I won't even flinch. Great.
Not even a chance. Well, no. If there is anyone out there in a similar situation with chronic pain and you're struggling, I'm popping some resources into the chat so that if you need to talk to somebody who is a trained crisis counselor or mental health professional, there's a couple resources in there for you. And with that, do you have anything else you want to share with the community? Anything we didn't cover or anything you just want to throw out there? Resources or sites or personal recommendations or anything? I'm just opening it up for you.
Yeah, there's some the ones I found are on Tumblr. There's some really great ADHD communities on Tumblr. Actually ADHD is one of them. And it says Tumblr, go there and you just search actually ADHD. They are wonderful, and they have huge amounts of resources, loads of questions. You can talk to people and ask them questions. Just being able to ask other adults about their experiences is so enlightening. I really suggest that you do it. If you have or you suspect that you have ADHD or you live with someone with ADHD, I do strongly suggest that you learn about it, because the more you understand, the easier it is to cope with. And if you live with someone with ADHD, they'll do things that would it's just fact. And so be forgiving and be understanding, and understand that they're doing the same to you, because the way neurotypical people do things makes me crazy.
Yes.
You know, it goes both ways. Like,
right.
You know, as hard of a time as, you know, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I want everybody to come away with, is whenever you're struggling dealing with someone with a mental illness or an intellectual disability, understand that the other person is struggling just as much, if not more, trying to meet you in the middle.
Yeah.
With this.
Yeah. No, that is a really good point, because it's definitely accurate.
A little more empathy.
Yeah, right. A little more empathy cannot hurt anyone ever. Well, I don't know. That might not be true, because my daughter is super empathetic about a lot of different things. And we've had to work with her so that she wasn't as affected by everyone else around her, to the point where she couldn't function. So but that's a whole other thing. Most people could use a little more empathy.
A little.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, just a touch more. Well, chat, give me just a second to disconnect with MadFishMonger. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it. This was a great chat, and I know that the community was appreciating all of it as well. Hits home thinking about my son who has cerebral palsy and my whole family having to understand his brain works differently. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. It
does. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you gotta meet, right? You can't just be like, you have cerebral palsy, but you should pretend like you don't.
Yes.
And you should act normal.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, no. You guys, how about all the rest of you try acting like you have cerebral palsy?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How does that feel? Not very good, does it?
Yep.
Shocking. Like, yeah, it's so kindergarten, and you're just like, why do you not put 3 seconds of thought into this?
Yeah, no kidding. All right, chat, give me just a second to disconnect with our guest. I'll be right back. I'm gonna give you the cat cam, but there are no cats, so maybe I'll throw some treats down so there'll be cats. Give me just a second.
Kitties.